Hey everyone, welcome to Football Theory, your one stop destination for all things football. My name is Rocky. It is 2 in the morning, but I couldn't help but not make this video. In today's video, I'm going to be looking at the squad of Real Madrid. I just want to go through how we've been doing this season. I want to see what changes can be made in the league. How are we doing? With a lot of incoming players, players that might potentially be going out, who stays, who doesn't. That's what I'm here to see today. Well, I'd like to start by just looking at our stats for this season. I think we are what? We're first in the league. Yes, we had most recently, we had a very weird, drawn out game against Atletico, but then we have our positives to take away from it. And let's just organize according to points. This is on FBref, by the way. FBref is a wonderful platform to be looking at stats in depth for players per 90, every small detail that you could ever possibly want to know. FBref, it's the Bible when it comes to analyzing stuff. So at the moment, we are first in the league, and I saw a lot of stats that were really nice that personally I thought would be interesting to know. For example, if we take goals minus XG, we're second compared to Girona, which is still pretty good, of 6.7. So we are overperforming our XG. First in terms of shots, first in terms of shots on target, uh, percentage of shots on target, yeah, maybe a little less, but yeah, still top four. We're doing very well in the league in that respect. Let's look at the passing statistics because I think this gives a bit more insight, I would say. Uh, Generally, in terms of pass completion, we're just great. This is interesting that we do a lot of progressive passing, so we're playing very direct football whenever we have the ball, and we can see that there's variety in the kinds of passing. It's mostly short passing, but we are doing other kinds of passing as well. In terms of the progressive distances of the passing, we're doing well over there as well. Yes, I think this is also important. Yes, so where do those passes lead to? So we're good at progressing the ball. Progressive carries are great. Progressive passes are great. What does that result in? If we sort by shot creating actions, we're first in the league. Goal creating actions, also first in the league, which overall goes to say that we have been performing very well and we have a really good squad that has the capability of performing well in the league. We've already won the Supercopa. We were out of the Copa del Rey, but we are still serious contenders for the Champions League this season. And I'm just going to be looking at the squad right now. This is the squad that we have at hand at the moment. This is the typical formation that Carlo Ancelotti likes to play. I've chosen these players in specific because I think this is potentially our best lineup that we could be putting forward. So I'm also going to have a few considerations for this video. Number one, I'm not going to be looking too much into the players that are injured because yes, there are a lot of injuries like Courtois, ACL, Eder Militao, David Alaba, also ACLs, Arda Güler, repetitive issues. Same with Vinicius Jr. Nothing too serious, but still things that we can look forward to. And also, if you've noticed, I have added Kylian Mbappe. It's because it's kind of confirmed by now that this season he is kind of going to come to us. So I've just kind of added him in there because I'm also curious to explore how the dynamic changes once Mbappe comes into the picture. How do things become different? What's different in the way that they could line up? How do they play differently? But yes, this is, I'd say, the best lineup, and it's because it has some of the youngest players that Real Madrid have at their disposal right now. To start off with Courtois, an absolute genius in goal. I think he has been amazing for the past couple of seasons at the goal for Real Madrid. Maybe not the best passers, maybe not the most modern goalkeepers, but I'd still say Thibaut Courtois is still one of the best. At the moment, he's injured, so it's been a switch between Andre Luden, who's also been doing very well. I like Andre Luden. I would compare him to a Casillas-esque player in terms of goalkeeping. Like that's the profile that I think he fits. Kepa's there, and Kepa does something, but I don't think we will extend his contract any more than it is right now. Our defense looks pretty decent at the moment, if we're not looking at the injuries, of course. Rudiger also recently picked up like a tiny knock or something like that. Eder Militao, ACL, kind of recovering, but at the same time, this pairing, they have the agility to run back if needed. They have the ability to progress the ball and find the right players in position if they have to. The fullbacks, of course, we have had rotations and stuff like that. So it's most on the left side. It could be David Alaba, who, but I'd honestly say that David Alaba more likes to push inwards, either invert or just drop completely into a center back, and that allows Carvajal to push up here. Uh, if not David Alaba, I would say that Mendy comes into the picture, or even Fran Garcia. Fran Garcia is a young guy. He's played pretty well, I'd say. Mendy, decent player, plagued by a lot of injuries. I saw a glimpse of how good he could be during our Champions League winning campaign a couple of years ago. So I think Mendy, a decent squad player, needs a bit more competition in that position to want to improve, I think. Danny Carvajal, on the right side, we have Danny Carvajal, an absolute engine when it comes to the work rate. At his age, the work rate that he puts in, both offensively and defensively, it's beautiful, I think. You also have Lucas Vasquez, maybe not defensively the most sound, but at the same time, still makes those forward runs. Can invert. Is mostly was an inverted winger, but he has the ability to invert. He still has the discipline to track back. So still a pretty decent player in my eyes. And of course, we have our captain, Nacho, loyal player, love him. Can play almost anywhere in this defensive setup. It's great. Uh, just a great player overall. A loyal player, a dependable player. Now we come to the midfield, which probably has everyone the most excited because it is an amazing midfield of some of the youngest talents across Europe. And that in itself is perfect. We start off with the central defensive position, which is Chouameni over here. Chouameni, amazing player, amazing youngster. I think it's a fact that in every game that Chouameni has started, we haven't lost the game. We haven't drawn the game, which is amazing because he's really been very focal. And I feel like if we had Chouameni starting the game against Atletico, we would have had the opportunity to keep our lead, which we didn't, but because he was suspended. So yes, Chouameni in that position, wonderful. Now, on these two sides, you have two guys who are very good ball carriers, ball progressors. They always come in to support, whether it's down here or up here, and they're great on the ball themselves. They don't typically lose the ball that often. They have the, again, worth ethic to make those runs. They are kind of box to box players. They have the ability to make those progressive passes, to make the progressive carries that can split a counter attack open. And that's Camavinga and Fede Valverde, really ones for the future. Camavinga, especially, amazing youngster. Fede Valverde has been proving himself for the past couple of years. Apart from that, of course, you have the stars, Toni Kroos and Luka Modric, in their primes, and a little past their primes right now, I'd say. I'd argue for Toni Kroos, there really was never a prime. He's just amazing throughout his entire career. Luka Modric, an amazing player. And they seem pretty similar, but they are actually two different profiles of players. And I feel like that's going to be the theme of this video, that you'll notice that a lot of the talk is going to be about what profile of player should Real Madrid look for in the future. So Toni Kroos, I remember when I was younger, he was called the German sniper because he was that good at picking out perfect passes. Perfect passes, so good that no one. He has the vision to look for a pass or know where his teammates would be, and the technical ability to make that pass. The same applies to Luka Modric, who has the added benefit of not being able to be dispossessed of the ball while he's on it. The term that I wanted to use is that Luka Modric is unpressable, which I think is a very interesting profile of player that isn't very common to see. Maybe few other players have fell into that category. Maybe if it was like up till 2021, I'd say Marco Verratti, one of those profiles of players. But personally, uh, those two are amazing. You also have Danny Ceballos, who's more of a support player these days, coming on during the later stages of a game when you just need a bit more stability. You also have Arda Güler, young Turkish player who has been wonderful when he's been able to start. So he's had like one start, maybe he came off the bench a couple of times, but the injuries were kind of an issue. So that's something that he's building up to. But the way he's described in the camp of Real Madrid, the way the coaches and the other players, the more experienced players like Modric describe him, he seems to be a star in the making. And the more time he gets, the better he is going to be. And of course, there will be a bit of a vacuum next season, which we'll talk about later. And I think Arda Güler is like primed to kind of find his place in that position. But I think now I move on to the star, arguably, of this team right now, Jude Bellingham. Honestly, wow. The definition of 100 million euro or pound signing. This is what you'd expect. No time needed to settle into the league, no preparations required. He came, he performed, he is performing. And that's one of the best things about Jude Bellingham. And up top, you have two young, very intelligent runners with the ball, very good dribblers who can find passes very well, who know how to play among themselves, and that's in Vinicius and Rodrigo. And honestly, at this point, Bellingham is kind of like a focal point to the attack. It's around Bellingham that the attack kind of builds up. So as Bellingham moves upward in the pitch, the ball kind of moves with him. He is kind of the focus of this team right now. And apart from Bellingham, I'd say Brahim Diaz has kind of stepped up his game, waited a long time to get his mark on the squad, and I think he's finally getting it. And a surprise uh, player for us was Hosselu, who we didn't really expect was supposed to be a backup after Benzema left a little vacuum in the squad, but honestly, he's outperforming his expectations as well. Right now, this squad is very capable of competing for La Liga, competing for the Champions League. Let's see how they do that tactically. I'll start off with the defense a bit. Uh, Madrid's defense has kind of always been being more compact, kind of sitting back because we like to absorb a lot of pressure and then hit on the counter. How would we go about doing that? In a formation like this, typically a defensive low block kind of constitutes a 4-4-2, I would say. In this case, what happens is Bellingham and Chouameni kind of fit into like the central roles, whereas Camavinga and Fede Valverde are pushed out wide, and then you have Vinny and Rodrigo kind of in this position right here. And once Madrid get into this situation, it's very hard to pull them out of it. It's pretty hard to get the ball through. We do have one of the best defenses in La Liga, at least, maybe even in football in general at the moment. A lot of credit goes to great players like Rudiger, players like Lunin, who have been doing very good shot stopping, and just the work ethic of the team in general in tracking back, in being able to make those runs, in being able to uh, control the game sometimes a bit more than we have. I'm going to switch to a little bit of a different view. I think this should kind of show us how they are looking to attack. Now, the objective of the attack is always like kind of to fit in and overload. And the way Real Madrid kind of goes about it is they like to have their most attacking players, their strikers, I would say, strikers, wide forwards, kind of in Vini and Rodrigo, always sitting in the half spaces over here because one, both of them, Vini loves to make this run over here, like cutting inside. Same thing applies to Rodrigo. In fact, he can do it on the left side as well. You have Bellingham over here who kind of chooses to sit in between the midfield and the defensive line. And through Bellingham, you can kind of see the avenues that open up for a through ball or something like that. At this point, even to maintain a bit of the width to prevent the center from getting too congested, you have Mendy who comes in here and Carvajal, or this could even be Fran Garcia, David Alaba. A lot of players can fit into this profile over here. That's just to stretch out the pitch a little bit, and then it becomes a patience game of okay, how long can they try to hold a low block? How long can they be compact? How long will they not want to have the ball before they make that one error that's going to allow us to proceed? And two of the policemen, I guess, I think I heard this from Thierry Henry, that two of the policemen of the squad are here in Valverde and Camavinga. And this positioning, according to me, is very, very interesting. And it's very tactical as well. Why? Because these are the players who have the ability to make both offensive and defensive runs. So, in the case that, let's say, the squad is kind of pushed like this, you would see that Camavinga is just here in a support role. So, the passing kind of works here. Same thing applies to Valverde. But now, at the same time, let's assume that it shifts into something like a counter attack. Let's say the ball comes to a player like maybe the six, and they look to unleash the wingers or find a way to counter attack Real Madrid. One, we have a pair of strong center backs who have the ability to track back, who have the ability to hold the ball or hold the line so that either you force an offside or you're able to slow the striker down enough for, or the player down long enough for the goalkeeper to get control of the ball. And you also have these two players, Camavinga and Valverde, who are capable, they have the pace, they have the tank to make these runs and close them down almost quickly. But ideally, they want to stop any counter attack before it gets started. And I like the way that this is just positioned. Because personally, for me, we know that Camavinga is used to playing in a left back position. He played for us in that position, I'd argue, for about a year and a half or so. Fede Valverde also a year and a half in the right back, right wing back position. So he also has the ability. And we know that Carvajal can push back. We know that Mendy can push back. Mendy is also a pretty decent defensive player. Sometimes offensively, haven't seen the best of him, but it's all right. That's pretty much the lineup. It is a great team. We have the capability of winning so many different trophies this year. One thing that I'm personally curious to try out actually is what happens when Kylian Mbappe enters this squad over here. I think that the way we would go about it is that Bellingham would switch to where Luka Modric or like a more central creative player would be. So, because Bellingham honestly has the offensive and defensive capability to help in this transition sort of state. And besides, the team of Real Madrid right now is very fluid. They have the ability to move in a way that will disrupt the entire position. So let's say the ball is on this side of the pitch. You can see all the players kind of creating an overload, and that makes them kind of push here as well. And while this happens, they're out of their defensive shape. You find spaces on the flank over here where they're able to push up, and then it just moves into a counter attack, which is great. The main challenge with Kylian Mbappe is that he kind of is a player that needs to play off of somebody in these spaces. So again, he does love these spaces over here, just like Vinny, just like Rodrigo. And I think he has the ability to blast out in a counter attack and just uh, be the main man in attack, the way Ronaldo was, the way Benzema was. And he has the ability to start from deep and carry the ball forward as well, which is again something that we have in our squad right now. And I think that he has a lot of options in in terms of the ability to play off of maybe Vinny or maybe even Bellingham. Bellingham can push up here. He can play against Rodrigo, or he has his options. So I think finally, when Mbappe comes, there will be a possibility to switch up the way the team plays right now. So I guess that's it with the squad at the moment. Looking at the future of where we go, I am aware that currently there are 5 players who could potentially be out of contract, and that is a bit worrying because these are very core players to the foundation of our squad. So I don't think they should be let go of at a stage where we have a lot of youngsters, a lot of new players coming into the squad who need time to feel the Real Madrid spirit. And those 5 players are Luka Modric, Joselu, who's technically on loan, Tony Cruz, Nacho, and Lucas Vasquez. Now, these 5 players, again, apart from Joselu, who I'd still argue he is important, I'd say that this team is kind of the these people are kind of the core of Real Madrid's senior players. So losing any of them would be a really big loss. Now, it surprisingly is the midfield that kind of does concern me. Why do I say that? Because we come back to the topic of the profile of the players. Now, Luka Modric, again, unpressable. He has a way of holding on to the ball. It's like the ball's practically glued to his feet. And potentially in the future, I feel that Camavinga has the ability under Modric's mentorship. I think he has the ability to become this kind of a player. I think he will be able to fully replace Luka Modric in the squad. Does that mean that he will be as good as him? Maybe not, but I I still think that he has a pretty high ceiling. He is very young. He has the ability to improve. Uh, in terms of the kind of player that Tony Cruz is, I think this is a kind of player that we may be needing to look for and to see how we can get a player of this caliber. Because Tony Cruz is just that kind of a player who will have the ability to make a diagonal cross that can find Carvajal in a counter attack, or he can have the vision to see Vinny bursting out through the flanks or in the half spaces. And I think that profile of player is very important for Real Madrid because there are, again, we have a lot of progressive carriers, a lot of progressive passers, but you also need players with the technical ability to pull off those passes for it to happen. And at the moment, most of the players here are pretty young. Uh, it is possible for Fede Valverde and Bellingham to kind of make those passes. Chouameni, I'm not too confident, but then again, that's not mainly why Chouameni is being played. So yes, I think the profile of player that Tony Cruz is, that's something that we kind of have to look into. The question kind of comes in of Arda Güler. Is it possible? Now the thing is, because there isn't enough game time of a player like Arda Güler, I think maybe not. I think it could be like, I think that we still need to see how good he can get and see if he fills in this role. Obviously, I think again, Ibrahim Diaz can fill this role as well, but I think he is more offensive right now. Ibrahim Diaz, I noticed recently, has a wonderful first touch, by the way. Very rarely it's let him down. He is a good dribbler of the ball. He does connect well on 1-2s. He scored the goal against our goal against Atletico. So, a great player who is finally getting his time at the club. So, I think that in the case of Toni Kroos and Luka Modric, I say we keep them for one more year until we have the ability to bring in another player of the same type, a player who can kind of do what both of them do as well. Few names come to mind right now. I heard rumors of Florian Wirtz from Leverkusen. That's a possibility. For me, the perfect player would honestly be Bernardo Silva from Manchester City. I think that is a very, very good swap. I think he has the time in his career to be able to continue what Modric and Kroos are doing so that maybe by the time he leaves, the profile of all of these players will be world class, and this squad itself will be enough to compete for all the major trophies that they are looking to compete for. So yes, I think that by extending Luka Modric and Toni Kroos and finding a middle-aged, we're not looking for someone too young. I think it's okay to look for a middle-aged replacement for them. And by middle-aged, I mean like maybe 30 or maybe like towards the end of their careers, who's still a great baller, who can still do what they do, but just to continue the momentum of what they've done. In terms of Nacho, personally, I think that a contract renewal is due. I think that's because over time, for example, David Alaba recently, has he been the best? Not exactly. Has he been able to perform the way he did in his first year? Not exactly. And with the current ACL injury, and considering he's over 30 years old, is it a possibility that injuries will plague David Alaba? Yes. With Nacho has always been very reliable in that regard. And in some ways, we'd argue that he's kind of keeping the defense together. He is that leader type role. And I think that, yes, he can definitely stay. And the case with Lucas Vasquez is that he is a great player. He has been a very loyal player, has never complained. Same thing with Hosselu. These are the kind of players who don't complain about their game time or how or what position they play in. They are happy to play for the team, for the betterment of the team. If you remember, Vasquez used to play up here as a winger or as someone who used to invert from the wing, and he switched into that right back role when we didn't really have many players who were capable of it. And with Hosselu, again, was supposed to be a, a backup striker, but honestly, exceeding everyone's expectations as well. With regards to Hosselu, I still think that it is possible, but I don't know if it is necessary to maybe seal the deal with Hosselu. He is on loan, so maybe you could potentially. But when Mbappe comes into the question, it's always of okay, what happens now? Like, how do we progress from here? Because you don't want an overly bloated squad, but at the same time, players like Hosselu are also important as much as the big stars that fill a team. So it needs to be seen how Mbappe's arrival is going to impact this squad right here. And with regards to Lucas Vasquez, personally, I think that another player that has to be on the lookout for Real Madrid are better fullbacks. Now, with the fact that Mbappe is coming on a free transfer, a bit of funds are in order. There are funds available to make transfers that we deem important. And I think these two positions kind of have to be filled, the left wing and the right wing. Again, when thinking of suggestions, honestly, both the wing backs of Leverkusen right now, Jeremy Frimpong and Alex Grimaldo, they are that profile of player. Again, to keep the width over here or to make these up and down runs. Then again, it is because Leverkusen play a three at the back system, so it might be a little different. But I still think both Jeremy Frimpong and Alex Grimaldo are amazing players. So I think that totally they deserve, they could fit into this system pretty well. On the left side, I have also heard Alfonso Davies. That is a serious rumor that has been passing around. He is a class player. He has the speed to make some really good offensive runs. Maybe the hair to Marcelo, we don't know yet, but I think it's a possible deal. I think it's definitely something that they can look forward to trying to do. Definitely a step up from Mendy, and to be honest, I think even Mendy would improve with the competition of another serious player in that position. Fran Garcia is still kind of a youth player that is kind of like a squad player, the same way Lucas Vasquez is. And on the right side, I think when it comes to players like, again, Alex Grimaldo is a shout that goes out. Sorry, Alex Grimaldo's on the left side. Jeremy Frimpong is a player that goes out as a thought. Pedro Porro from Tottenham would be nice. And also, I think Giovanni Di Lorenzo from Napoli. I think these are players that Real Madrid could potentially look at improving the squad because I think that the amount of players in the right back position who are capable right now are dangerously low. And with that being said, I think Lucas Vasquez could be at the end of his time at Real Madrid. It could be that if he stays, he'll be staying just because of wanting to support the club and be a part of the club's journey. He does have Champions Leagues with the club, of course, and he has contributed in his own way to those Champions Leagues that we've won. It's just he won't have much of a squad role, and that eventually may lead to him choosing to leave the club. So, apart from that, I think a good center back, I think a young center back would be really nice to fit into this Real Madrid squad right now. I think that, I think David Alaba should, maybe a year or two be on his way. Nacho will be on his way after a while. Not right now. I don't think that should happen right now. I think after a while it will happen because he is not as young as he used to be. And the partnership of Rudiger and Militao, I think you need someone along with Eder Militao to kind of be there as a presence. Maybe not as tall as Rudiger because honestly, Chouameni is tall. Camavinga has a good jump to him. Eder Militao as well. I think that you can have a decent centre back in that position. Personally, for me, a few names stand out. I think from Sheffield United, his name is Ahmed Ojic. I heard that he's an up and coming talent. I've heard about Benfica's star, who's honestly one of the most looked forward to centre backs, young centre backs in the world right now, who is Antonio Silva. And I think the last name that came to mind was Mohamed Simikan from Leipzig, another player who's just been doing great. Again, fits the profile of what we're looking for. So, I guess in conclusion, it is definitely possible for Real Madrid to compete for all the major trophies this year. At this point, I would say that a win against Girona next week would kind of put them back in a good position to compete for the league. I feel like if they won against Atletico and then won against Girona as well later on this week, they would have a 7 point buffer at 24 games. That's pretty good. I also think that the Champions League is going to be a good. There's going to be a good run from us. We have young players who have the bite to want more, young players who've already won it and want to win more. And I think it's definitely possible for us to be able to make a good Champions League run as well. I think that's definitely possible. Looking at the future, I think we do need to find a way to balance how our young players are brought into the squad and that sometimes they need to be rested as well because otherwise it ends kind of like a situation in Barcelona where you have young players like Pedri, Gavi, Balde who are playing minute after minute, game after game. Pedri, I think a couple of seasons ago, played a lot of games, more than he should have, and this is all before they even reached the age of 20. So afterwards, that can lead to problems. All three of the players I mentioned are currently out with ACL injuries. I think. I know that Gavi and Alejandro Balde are out with ACL injuries, and there needs to be a way of easing in your young players into the squad. So entirely eliminating the older crop of players who are also the spirit of Real Madrid. They come from so much experience, they have won so much, and they have so much to give to these young players. I think that there is that I think still now we are still in a transitional period that if we don't do this right, we could potentially be risking an overly young squad that may not be able to have the the mentality that is required, because ultimately that does come from more senior players. Yes, and with that, thank you for watching this video. This was a quick analysis of the Real Madrid squad. Personally, I am a Real Madrid fan. My name is Rocky. Thank you for watching. Again, this was Futbol Theory, your one-stop destination for all things football. Thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to subscribe, leave a like, comment on our videos, and have a nice day.